My stepmother yelled at me. You and your kids are Parasite living off our generosity, while living in the $2 million house I owned. So I let her finish her rant, smiled calmly, and handed her 30-day eviction notices right there at dinner. Hey lovely people! Subscribe to be part of this family and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. With that, let's continue the story. The crystal chandelier above my father's dining table cast shadows across the faces I'd once called family. I watched my stepmother Bernice's perfectly manicured fingers grip her wine glass, knuckles whitening as she stared at my 8-year-old daughter Lucille, who'd accidentally knocked over her water. The silence stretched like pulled taffy, thick and uncomfortable. My father sat at the head of the table, eyes downcast, while my two stepbrothers Ezra and Jackson exchanged knowing smirks. Clumsy, just like her mother, Bernice muttered, dabbing at the tablecloth with theatrical disgust. The words hit me like a slap, but I'd learned to swallow these small cruelties. My 10-year-old son Lucas reached over to help his sister, and I felt my chest tighten with that familiar mixture of pride and protective rage that only mothers understand. I'd been coming to these Friday dinners for 3 years now, ever since my husband died. Every week I told myself it was important for the kids to know their grandfather, to have some sense of family stability after losing their father so suddenly. But lately, each visit felt like walking through a minefield blindfolded. Thank you for having us, Bernice, I said softly, forcing a smile I didn't feel. The roast is delicious. The lie tasted bitter on my tongue, but peacekeeping had become my second language. What I didn't know then, as I watched my children eat quietly, trying to make themselves smaller, was that this dinner would be our last. The explosion was coming, and with it, revelations that would shatter everything I thought I knew about loyalty, family, and the house where we all sat pretending everything was fine. Nobody knew the truth about the house. Not Bernice, not my stepbrothers, not even my father. When my mother died 15 years ago, she'd left me more than grief and memories. She'd left me her entire estate, including this 6-bedroom colonial that Bernice had redecorated with my mother's life erased from every corner. I was 25 then, drowning in loss and unable to process the paperwork my mother's attorney kept pushing across his mahogany desk. Your mother wanted you to have security, Mr. Harrison had explained, his kind eyes magnified behind thick glasses. The house is in a trust under your name. Your father has lifetime residence rights, but you're the owner, Ms. Thompson. Always have been, always will be. I'd signed the papers in a fog, then locked them away, never mentioning them to anyone. At the time, Dad was already seeing Bernice, a yoga instructor he'd met at the gym 6 months after Mom's funeral. I couldn't bear to add property ownership to the awkward conversations about his new relationship. Let him have this, I told myself. Let him feel like the man of the house Mom built. So I stayed silent while Bernice moved in, while she threw out Mom's garden furniture, while she painted over the butter-yellow kitchen Mom had loved. The house had appreciated significantly. Mr. Harrison sent annual statements to my P.O. box. $2 million now, maybe more. Every year, the property taxes came from the trust account Mom had established. Every year, Bernice complained about money while wearing $1,000 shoes. And every year I said nothing, believing that keeping the peace was worth more than asserting my rights. But watching Lucille's face crumple at Bernice's cruelty, I felt something shift. The foundation of my patience had cracks I'd been ignoring for too long. The tension might have stayed contained if not for the photograph. After dinner, while Bernice cleared plates with aggressive clattering, Lucille wandered into the living room. I heard her small voice call out, "Mommy, who's this pretty lady?" My blood went cold. I knew exactly which photograph she'd found. I rushed in to find my daughter holding a small frame she'd discovered behind a large vase on the bookshelf. It was my mother, radiant in her garden, surrounded by the roses she'd spent years cultivating. The same roses Bernice had ripped out to plant ornamental grasses. "That's your grandmother, sweetheart," I said softly, kneeling beside her. "Your daddy's mommy who passed away." "She looks like you," Lucille whispered, tracing the glass with her finger. "She looks happy." The simple observation cracked something inside me. My mother had been happy in this house, had made it a home filled with warmth and laughter. What had I let it become? Bernice's voice cut through the moment like a knife. Put that away, Lucille. We don't display old photographs. She snatched the frame from my daughter's hands with such force that Lucille stumbled backward into my arms. The photograph hit the hardwood floor, glass shattering into 1,000 pieces. Lucille started crying and Lucas appeared in the doorway, fists clenched at his sides. It was an accident, I said, hearing the tremor in my voice as I held Lucille close. She didn't mean to, but Bernice wasn't listening. Her face had transformed into something ugly, something I'd never seen directed at my children before. My father appeared behind her, silent as always, a ghost in his own home. Ezra and Jackson lounged in the doorway, entertained. That child needs to learn respect, Bernice hissed. Touching things that don't belong to her. The irony was so thick I could choke on it, but I still didn't say the words burning on my tongue. Not yet. Not quite yet. I was gathering broken glass, my hands shaking with suppressed emotion, when Bernice's next words fell like bombs. You know what your problem is, Nicole? She stood over me, arms crossed, queen of her castle. You never learn boundaries. Just like your mother, always thinking you're entitled to everything. My mother. She was bringing my mother into this. I stood slowly, piece of broken glass still in my palm, feeling it bite into my skin. Bernice, please don't, I started, but she was on a roll now, 3 glasses of wine fueling her courage. Your mother spoiled your father rotten and now you expect the same treatment. Coming here every week with your kids, eating our food, letting them run wild like little animals. Do you think any of this is free? She gestured around the room at the house my mother had chosen, the floors my mother had refinished, the windows my mother had replaced. Lucas moved closer to me, his young face twisted with confusion and anger. We bring food every week, he said quietly, his voice barely audible. It was true. I always brought wine, dessert, side dishes, trying to contribute, trying to not be a burden. Trying to earn our place at a table in the house I owned. Bernice turned on him with a sneer. Oh, the boy speaks. Tell me, Lucas, does your mother teach you to talk back to adults? Is that the kind of respect she's instilling? My father finally spoke. Bernice, that's enough. But his voice held no real authority, just tired resignation. He looked old suddenly, older than his 62 years, diminished in ways I hadn't noticed before. No, Richard, it's not enough, Bernice spat. Someone needs to say what we're all thinking. She turned back to me and I saw something in her eyes I'd been too blind to see before. Not just dislike. Hatred. Pure, undiluted hatred. And I realized with stunning clarity that this had been building for years. You and your kids are parasites, Bernice said, each word dropping like stones into still water. Living off our generosity, expecting us to play grandparents to children who aren't even Richard's blood. Do you know what people say? They see us, this ready-made family, and they think we're running a charity. Poor widow Nicole, can't make it on her own, needs daddy to support her and her little bastards. Lucille's sob cut through the room. Lucas's face went pale then red. My father stood up finally, but Bernice whirled on him. Don't you dare, Richard. Don't you dare defend her again. I've bit my tongue for 3 years while she parades through here like she owns the place, while her kids destroy our peace, while she plays the grieving widow card to manipulate you into playing grandfather. They are my grandchildren, my father said weakly. The words should have been a roar, but they came out as a whisper. Ezra and Jackson had their phones out now, recording. This was entertainment to them, drama to share with their friends. I felt something inside me turn to ice, cold and sharp and clear. Biologically yours, maybe, Bernice continued, pacing now like a lawyer making closing arguments. But let's be honest about what Nicole is. A leech. A user. She shows up here with her sad eyes and her fatherless children and you just give and give and give. Well, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of pretending. I'm sick of Friday dinners and fake smiles and pretending I care about her tragic little life. The cruelty was breathtaking in its honesty. I stood there, my children pressed against me, and felt a strange calm descend. This was it. The moment of truth I'd been avoiding for years. The moment when silence became complicity and peacekeeping became self-destruction. I looked at my father, really looked at him, and saw a man who'd chosen comfort over courage, quiet over confrontation. Are you finished? I asked Bernice softly. She blinked, surprised by my tone. I want to make sure you're completely finished before I respond. Is there anything else you'd like to say about me or my children? Bernice's eyes narrowed with suspicion, but she'd committed now, too far gone to retreat. As a matter of fact, yes. I think it's time we establish some new boundaries. Maybe Friday dinners aren't working anymore. Maybe it's time you learn to stand on your own 2 feet instead of running to daddy every time life gets hard. Your husband died, Nicole. It's tragic, yes, but it's been 4 years. Time to move on, don't you think? 4 years, 3 months and 16 days. I knew exactly how long Michael had been gone because I counted every morning when I woke up reaching for him. Every night when I had to be both parents to our children. Every moment when I had to be strong enough for 3 people. But Bernice didn't know that. She didn't know anything about me, about my life, about the weight I carried every single day with a smile plastered on my face. Mom. Lucas's voice cracked, puberty and emotion mixing. Can we go now? My son trying to protect me, trying to get his sister away from this toxicity. 10 years old and already learning that family can be your greatest source of pain. In a moment, baby, I said, pulling out my phone. My hands weren't shaking anymore. The ice in my veins had spread through my entire body, bringing with it a crystalline clarity I hadn't felt in years. I scrolled through my contacts, found the name I needed. I just need to make a quick call first. Oh, calling someone to rescue you? Bernice laughed, the sound sharp and mocking. Let me guess, you're going to run crying to one of your friends about how mean I am? Go ahead. Everyone already knows you're weak. Ezra snickered from the doorway. Jackson mumbled something that sounded like, drama queen. My father finally stood up fully. Bernice, I really think, but she cut him off with a slash of her hand. You think nothing, Richard. You never do. That's the problem. You're so busy feeling guilty about remarrying that you let your daughter walk all over us. I hit the call button. It rang once. Twice. Then Mr. Harrison's familiar voice. Nicole? Is everything all right? It's rather late. I smiled then, and something in that smile made Bernice stop talking. Mr. Harrison, I said clearly, my voice carrying through the suddenly silent room. I need to confirm something. This house at 1247 Oakmont Drive. I am still the legal owner, correct? The trust is still active. I watched the color drain from Bernice's face as understanding began to dawn. Of course, Nicole, Mr. Harrison replied, confusion evident in his tone. As I've stated in every annual report, you've been the sole owner since your mother's death. The trust continues to pay all expenses, property taxes, insurance, maintenance. Did you not receive this year's statement? The property's current valuation is approximately $2.3 million. Why do you ask? Is something wrong? I put the phone on speaker. Could you repeat that, please, Mr. Harrison? I want to make sure everyone here understands the situation clearly. Bernice had gone from red to white to an alarming shade of gray. My father looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. Ezra and Jackson had lowered their phones, finally realizing this wasn't just family drama to mock. You are the owner of the property, Mr. Harrison repeated slowly, his attorney's instincts kicking in. Your mother established the trust in 2010, transferred the deed into your name, and granted your father lifetime residence rights conditional on certain terms. The property cannot be sold or transferred without your explicit consent. You have complete control over who resides there, subject to your father's residential rights. Is there a problem, Nicole? No problem, I said softly. Just clarifying some misunderstandings. Thank you, Mr. Harrison. I'll call you Monday morning about drafting some documents. I could hear his concern. Nicole, whatever you're planning, please make sure you think it through carefully. Family matters can be complicated. I've been thinking about it for 15 years, I interrupted gently. I'll talk to you Monday. I ended the call and slipped the phone back into my pocket. The silence in the room was absolute. Even Lucille had stopped crying, sensing something monumental was happening. Bernice found her voice first, but it came out strangled. That's not possible. This is Richard's house. Your mother left it to Richard. You're lying. But we could all see she knew I wasn't lying. The truth was written in every shocked face around the table. My mother did leave the house to someone, I said conversationally as if discussing the weather. She left it to me. She established a trust when she got her cancer diagnosis, ensuring I'd have security no matter what happened. She died when I was 25, and I became the owner of this house on my 26th birthday. That was 15 years ago. My father's voice was barely a whisper. You never said anything. All these years. The betrayal in his eyes might have hurt if I hadn't just watched him sit silently while his wife eviscerated his grandchildren. You let us think, you let me think. I let you think you still lived in your house, I finished for him. I let you have dignity. I let you feel like the man who provided for his family. I signed papers giving you lifetime residence rights because you're my father and I loved you. Loved, I repeated, past tense deliberate. Past tense, Dad. Before I watched you sit there in silence while your wife called my children bastards and parasites. Bernice was shaking now, whether from rage or fear I couldn't tell. Richard, she's lying. Call the mortgage company. Call someone. This house is ours. We've lived here for 12 years. Her voice rose to a near shriek. There is no mortgage, I said calmly. Mom paid it off before she died. The trust pays approximately $48,000 annually in property taxes. Another $12,000 for insurance and various maintenance costs. It's all documented. It's all been documented for 15 years while I kept my mouth shut and let you believe you were doing me a favor by allowing me and my bastard children to eat at your table. Lucas was staring at me with wide eyes, finally understanding. Lucille looked confused, but she'd stopped crying, sensing that somehow Mommy was okay now. Mommy was more than okay. Ezra tried to salvage the situation. Nicole, look, Bernice didn't mean. I held up my hand and he stopped talking. Yes, she did, I said simply. She meant every word. And that's fine. At least now we all know where we stand. Looking at my father's shocked face, I was transported back 15 years to the hospital room where my mother lay dying. She'd been so thin by then, eaten away by cancer that had spread faster than anyone predicted. But her mind had been sharp, terrifyingly sharp, right until the end. Nicole, baby, listen to me, she'd whispered, her hand like paper in mine. I'm leaving you the house. Not your father. You. I'd started to protest, but she'd squeezed my hand with surprising strength. He's already seeing someone. Did you know that? That woman from his gym. Bernice. The name had hit me like cold water. But you just got diagnosed 4 months ago. He wouldn't. Even then I'd wanted to believe the best of him. Mom had smiled sadly, the kind of smile that held a lifetime of disappointments. He would. His. And that's okay, baby. People grieve in different ways. But I won't leave my life's work to someone who couldn't wait for my body to get cold. Your father is weak, she'd continued, each word an effort. Not bad, just weak. He'll let people walk all over him and they'll walk all over you too if you let them. So I'm giving you the power. The house is yours. Let him live there because he's your father and he needs somewhere to go. But never forget it's yours. When the time comes, and it will come, baby, I promise you, don't be weak like him. Be strong like me. I'd cried then, unable to process losing my mother and learning about my father's betrayal simultaneously. She died 2 weeks later. Bernice moved in 6 weeks after the funeral. And I'd kept my mother's secret, honoring her wishes while watching the woman who couldn't wait for her to die redecorate the home she'd built. Now, standing in that same living room, I finally understood what my mother had seen. She'd known exactly what would happen. She'd known Bernice would eventually show her true colors. She'd given me the weapon to defend myself. I just had to be brave enough to use it. I reached into my purse and pulled out the envelope I'd been carrying for 3 weeks. Mr. Harrison sent me these last month, I said, my voice steady as stone. After I finally called him and explained the situation. After I told him about the comments, the small cruelties, the way my children were being treated in the house their grandmother left to them. Bernice lunged forward, trying to grab the papers, but I stepped back smoothly. These are eviction notices, I continued, addressing the room like a courtroom. 30 days as required by law for month-to-month tenants. That's what you are, Bernice. You and Ezra and Jackson. Month-to-month tenants living in my house by my grace paying no rent. My father has lifetime residence rights, but those rights don't extend to his subsequent family members. I pulled out the first notice and handed it to Bernice. Her hands trembled as she unfolded it, her eyes scanning the legal language that spelled out her future in black and white. "This is insane," she breathed. "Richard, do something. Call our lawyer. This can't be legal." "It's completely legal," I said. "Mr. Harrison is one of the top estate attorneys in the state. My mother made sure of that. You have 30 days to remove yourself and your sons from my property. My father is welcome to stay if he chooses, but you are not." Jackson jumped up. "You can't do this. We've lived here for 12 years. This is our home." The entitlement in his voice was staggering, and I realized Bernice had raised them to believe they deserved everything without earning anything. "Actually, I can," I replied. "And I am." Ezra's face had gone red. "What about Dad? You're just going to let your father live here alone while you kick out his wife? What kind of daughter are you?" The hypocrisy was breathtaking. My father sat frozen, saying nothing, doing nothing, exactly as he'd done my entire life when it mattered most. "The kind who protects her children," I said quietly. "Something you all seem to have forgotten I might do." I handed Ezra and Jackson their notices. My father finally stood up, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor with a sound like a scream. "Nicole, please. Can we talk about this privately? There has to be another way." His voice cracked on the last word, and for a moment, just a moment, I saw the man who'd pushed me on swings and attended every school play. But then I remembered him sitting silent while Bernice destroyed my children's sense of security. "Dad," I said, and my voice wasn't cold anymore. It was tired. "I have given you 15 years of grace. I've watched Bernice erase every trace of Mom from this house. I've watched her spend money like water while complaining about finances. I've endured snide comments and subtle digs because I told myself you were happy and Mom would want you happy. But the second she came after my kids, the second she called them parasites in the house their grandmother left them, that grace ended." Bernice found her voice again, shrill with desperation. "You vindictive little bitch. This is about your mother, isn't it? You've never forgiven your father for moving on, for finding happiness after she died. So you're punishing us all with some legal technicality your mother set up before she died." "Legal technicality?" I laughed, the sound hollow. "You mean property ownership? That legal technicality? And you're right about one thing. My mother did set this up before she died. Because she knew. She knew what kind of person you were, Bernice. She knew you were sleeping with my father while she was dying. She knew you moved in 6 weeks after her funeral. She knew all of it, and she protected me from you." My father's face went white. "Nicole, we didn't," but he couldn't finish the lie. We both knew the truth now, laid bare after 15 years of careful avoidance. Bernice's face confirmed everything. She didn't even try to deny it. "Choose, Dad," I said softly. "You have 30 days to decide. Stay in the house Mom left you residence rights to, or leave with your wife. But she goes. They all go. Those are your options." The silence that followed felt like the end of the world. My father looked between me and Bernice, and I saw the moment he made his choice in his eyes before he even spoke. "I can't abandon my wife," my father said finally, and though I'd expected it, the words still felt like a blade between my ribs. "Nicole, please try to understand. Bernice is my partner. I can't just let her be thrown out on the street. There has to be a compromise here." "The compromise was me staying silent for 15 years, I replied. "The compromise was me pretending I didn't own this house while Bernice spent thousands redecorating it. The compromise was me bringing food and wine and gifts to dinners in my own home. I'm done compromising, Dad." She called my children parasites. She called them bastards. Where was your loyalty then? Bernice's tears started then, dramatic and calculated. "Richard, you can't let her do this to us. Where will we go? What about the boys? They're in school, they have lives here. You can't choose her over your own family." The manipulation was expert, honed by years of practice. But this time I saw through it. More importantly, my father looked uncertain. "Nicole," he tried again, Maybe Bernice was harsh, but she's under a lot of stress. She didn't mean those things about the kids. If we all just calm down and talk this through like adults. But Lucas's voice cut through the room, young and strong and furious. She meant it, Grandpa. She's always meant it. You just never wanted to see it. My son's face was streaked with tears, but his voice didn't waver. Every week she makes little comments about us. About how Mom dresses, about how we eat, about anything. And you just sit there. You've always just sat there. The truth from a 10-year-old's mouth was devastating. My father looked at Lucas, really looked at him, and I saw something break in his expression. But even broken, he chose Bernice. We'll be out in 30 days, he said quietly. All of us. I won't stay in a house where my wife isn't welcome. And there was the final betrayal. Not dramatic, not angry, just quiet resignation. He chose the woman who'd moved in before his wife's body was cold over his daughter and grandchildren. I nodded once, unable to trust my voice. Lucille was crying again, and Lucas put his arm around her shoulders. I found my father alone in the garden 3 weeks later, packing up the few things Bernice had allowed him to keep from his life with my mother. His hands trembled as he wrapped newspaper around a ceramic bird Mom had made in a pottery class 30 years ago. The moving truck was scheduled for the next day. Keep it, I said softly from the doorway. He startled, nearly dropping the fragile bird. Nicole. I didn't hear you come out. We stood in awkward silence, the space between us filled with everything unsaid. I want you to know, he started, his voice rough with emotion. I do love you. I've always loved you. I know, I said and meant it. But love isn't enough when it's silent. Love that doesn't protect, that doesn't defend, that just watches while people you love are torn down. That's not the kind of love that sustains anything. Tears rolled down his weathered cheeks. I was weak. Your mother always said I was weak. I thought I could keep everyone happy, but I just made everyone miserable instead. Where will you go? I asked, even though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. Bernice's sister has a place. We'll stay there until we find something. The boys are angry. They think you're cruel. Maybe you are. Maybe I taught you to be. His words felt like they were searching for absolution I couldn't give. I'm not cruel, I said. I'm protective. There's a difference. I looked around the garden Mom had loved, now overgrown and neglected. I'll fix this place up. Bring the roses back. Let the kids play here like I did. Mom would want that. My father nodded, setting down the ceramic bird on the bench between us. I failed you both. Your mother and you. I see that now. The admission came too late, changed nothing, but I appreciated it anyway. Goodbye, Dad, I whispered. He reached for me, but I stepped back. Goodbye, Nicole. Tell the kids. Tell them I'm sorry. I watched him walk back into the house, my house for the last time. Lucas and Lucille would grow up without their grandfather, but they'd grow up knowing their mother protected them. That she chose them over keeping false peace. Standing in Mom's garden as the sun set, I felt her presence stronger than I had in years. I was strong, Mom, I whispered to the wind. Just like you asked. The price of justice had been my father, and the cost of boundaries had been what remained of our family. But my children would never question whether they were wanted, whether they were valued, whether they were worth fighting for. And somehow, through the grief and loss, that had to be enough. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more real-life tales of justice and resilience. Have you ever had to set boundaries with toxic family members? Share your story in the comments below. Remember, protecting your peace and your children is never selfish. It's survival. And if you're facing a similar situation, know that you're not alone. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away from people who refuse to see your worth.